Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Charles. Today I'm going to be starting a new segment called Getting Connected to Our Coaches. And the first coach that I'm going to be highlighting today and interviewing is named Peter. How you doing, Peter?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Um, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Well, we'll start off. I was born in 1977. My dad was in the military, and my mom was a school teacher, and I'm the youngest of three kids. I moved to Denver in 1996, right out of high school. Um, I got a degree. I went to the Colorado Institute of Art, and I got a degree there. And I did a couple, a few jobs with my time here, and I'm an alcoholic, and I checked in my first treatment center on June 8th of 2012, and I haven't had alcohol since. But then I relapsed on inhalants, and I uh, got DWAI with that. Um, that was the closest I ever got to prison. They didn't actually take me to jail, or I should say jail. They didn't actually take me to jail because COVID was going on, and I entered in. It was probably about maybe my seventh rehab on on July 8th of 2021, and I've been sober since then.
Nice, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting, you know, a lot of people I feel like have their backgrounds almost kind of define them. Like we were talking in the pre-show meeting about, our backgrounds don't matter. Where we are now is the focus.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people will they'll almost I've seen it often with clients in the past who are early on, but it's almost like a way of separating themselves from the rest of the recovery community because I'm not as bad as that person, or I didn't have it as bad, or this and that, or I had food growing up, right? Like, I mean, there's all kinds of crazy stories, but it's so I think that, in my opinion, that just separates people,
It
so I
does.
I think it's more about where we are now and how we got there.
Exactly, and it's very good to look at similarities, rather than differences. To think, I've had a lot of people tell me to a case of the yets. When people are like, "Oh, I haven't lost my job yet."
Mm,
I'm not as bad as that person because they lost their home. I haven't lost my home yet because it can happen. It does happen to people.
yeah,
So
exactly. And it's we don't have to go through all of that pain and turmoil and hardship in our lives. We don't have to, you
absolutely,
know?
yeah,
And I think that that's, an important thing to realize, like we can sit in a meeting, for example, right? And we can listen to everyone's shares. We can listen to this person's pitfall and that person's relapse and this and that and so on, right? We can gain that knowledge and that experience without having to go through it ourselves,
yes,
and I think that that's really important, because
right,
I mean, people can go through, every external force on earth can be pushing down on someone to get clean or sober, and they still don't do it because they're not invested themselves. They're not ready. They're not willing, but I think getting to that place is the focus, in
right.
particular of our work, I would say.
Absolutely. And once you can actually relate to somebody, you see that similarity, that little spark, I guess, of the fire, and then you can kind of start a conversation there and see what more you have in common.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of things in common, I think that that's you know I think that's one of the important, very helpful parts about this whole peer movement, this whole coaching work that we do, right?
Right.
It's very much about, hey, you and I are on the same level.
Yeah.
We've both been through it, and I found some ways to get around these potholes and these pitfalls, and I'm going to share it with you. I'm going to guide, and we're going to move together, as opposed to some people think that, oh, hey, you are a clinician, therefore you're looking down on me. You
Right.
can't relate. You haven't been through it, this and that. So it's an interesting model, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
It is interesting. It is, and
Yeah.
one of the sayings that I always like to say is that in a 12-step program or in recovery, you don't really get over anything. You can get through it, and you
Mm.
get through it by talking about it, by meeting someone at that level and helping them up instead of you know pushing them down, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I wanted to touch on real quick also you know, the journey for you from being a person in recovery to becoming a coach. And, just kind of like how has that sort of impacted your life and your recovery and, all that.
Right. Well, becoming a coach has helped me out a lot, actually. It's helped me with getting to know a lot of people, a lot of their backgrounds, because I don't have a lot of backgrounds like other people, but other people don't have the backgrounds that I do, and that I can, like I said earlier, relate to them, understand them, and get to know them. If I have a question about something that they've been through, ask, and just kind of understand where they're coming from and where they want to go.
Hmm. I love that. I love that you said where they want to go as well, because it's not, as coaches, right? It's not about, us leading people where we think they should go based on our experience in recovery and all that stuff, because that might not be where they're at.
Right.
And I think one of the important things about coaching is meeting the client where they're at, like you're talking about, and, kind of figuring out like, okay, like the very first thing is you feel chaos in this area of your life. Cool. Let's focus there. Let's start there. Let's get that stable. And then we can address these other areas,
Right.
and kind of, throwing in some motivational interviewing and trying to see sort of where, they notice these issues in their life and like, oh, hey, like my house is on fire, but I'm not on fire. So everything's fine, right? But
Right.
it's not. Sometimes it takes an outside point of view to see that, to see the
Right.
craziness of the situation or whatever it is, and, help them do something about it, but
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Good deal.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, I think another interesting thing also is, you know, being okay with not being okay, and
Absolutely.
sometimes having bad days. I think everybody does that. I think everybody goes through that, and, in particular, I think in the helping profession, I think that's important for us to realize also, because sometimes it's not realistic to think that we're always going to have a perfectly happy day and this and that and so on. It's just not really how it works, but
Absolutely. And that's what I've had to learn in my recovery is that I have to learn to be okay to not be okay. To reach out for help if I need help. You know, um, I don't have to be invited to like every party, and I have to be okay with that. I have to be okay to have bad days. I used to um, someone who I went to meetings with a long time ago. They would always say you have to watch out for the. They would always say the mouse turds, the little
mm,
things in life that we don't plan for, because we can plan for, you know, anniversaries, holidays, birthdays, but we don't plan for the relationship breaking up or flat tire on the way to work, or you
mm,
spend months working on a presentation for work, and your boss says it sucks, and we don't plan for that
right,
stuff,
right.
and those are the things that we need to talk about, or else they pile up, and when they pile up, a lot of times we just I can only speak for myself, just don't know what to do with that.
Yeah,
When
totally. No, I relate to that as well. And, I think addressing that as a coach with our clients too, I think is really important, because I've had a lot of guys over the years say, oh, yeah, man, I'm doing great. I'm
yeah,
working and this and that. But, they forgot about on the way to work, they, shot the bird to 8 people and
yeah,
got in a road rage fight and blah,
oh
blah, blah.
man,
Because they don't know, they're not, like emotionally stable, right? They need to
absolutely,
get that emotional sobriety kind of thing, so it's I think sometimes getting into those details of like, okay, yeah, so like what about your day, like tell me a little deeper than just, yeah, it's fine, like,
yeah,
because sometimes I'm going to say, in my experience, just speaking for myself, sometimes as men it can also be difficult to open up and be vulnerable, and sort of get used to sharing on that level, especially
Absolutely.
when, you know, usually we're not necessarily raised to do that, I would say.
Right.
Uh, but that's one of the most important things, I think, is being able to get comfortable with this new version of ourselves, get comfortable with opening up, talking about things, getting them off our chest. Because you're right, those little mouse turds eventually turn into a big, crazy avalanche of mouse turds, and now you're drowning.
Yep.
you know?
And you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And you know what? I think that's where coaching comes in, because we've learned certain little hacks and
Right.
certain little tricks and tools and all that stuff along the way that we can share with our clients and kind of help guide them through that. Because it's just like forming a new habit.
Right.
They say it takes like it's 21 days or something to form a new habit
Right.
of consistently doing it. But once you do that, a lot of these things become second nature. I feel like
Right.
you know.
And it doesn't always have to be bad things to talk about either. You can talk about good things. If the boss did like that presentation and you're all excited and you're getting a promotion, talk about that as well. Because I know when I drank, it was bad days and good days that brought me to the bar. I'd
Right.
take a shot if I had a good day too. you know.
Right. Yeah. That's a really good point that you bring up, because it's true. I think for our mental health also, it can be really important to, like take the time to celebrate those wins,
Right.
and mark the occasion like, oh yeah, I remember when I did such and such, I made myself that really good meal and that was a good memory, or I
Yeah.
went out and did, whatever it is. But I think kind of getting back to that balance of life can be really important, um, especially for our clients in early recovery, being able to
Absolutely.
see that, because that's not necessarily a side of life that people in early recovery really focus on. It's chaos and madness and self-doubt, and the inner critic is going off, and so kind of like retraining that a little bit, you know
Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
I love that. That's a great point. Yeah. um well, I want to touch on one other thing as well here that we were talking about in our pre-show meeting. So I want to talk about patience. um Patience, as it takes time to rebuild our lives and transition into experiencing the gifts of recovery and then becoming invested in our own recovery. So important.
Absolutely. It's just because we have a time in sobriety doesn't mean we get everything right away. And like I said to you earlier, it's not like if we get 2 or 3 months sober, it's not like the neighbor's going to let us borrow his car.
Right.
It takes time. I've had people tell me time takes time,
Mm.
and it's very true. Um, I've done a lot of damage with relationships. And I've hurt a lot of people, and they need their healing as well. You know,
Mm.
and when I get out of treatment, and um, relationships don't work out the way that I want them to because I had this amount of time sober. Um, I kind of have to just deal with it. And I know that sucks to hear someone say that, but it's true. Look at the damage that I've done. I'm not a saint. you know,
Right.
and people who I've hurt or offended or something need their time to recover as well, and I have to be willing to let them do that, so they can have their peace as well.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really important thing to realize, like to our, viewers, if you are in the process of your recovery where you're about to start an amends process, let's say, I think it's important to know, first off, that amends process is not for us.
Yeah.
It's for them,
Yep.
And I think going into that process, knowing that we can't put our expectations on a situation, right? Like, for example, I can't think to myself, oh, okay, if I go and make amends with this person, they're going to jump out of their chair and, oh my God, give me a hug, like might happen, right? But sometimes people will respond in their own way.
Right.
Sometimes people will still be hurt. Everyone heals at their own kind of rate. And I think it's important to know that, because I think we just kind of set ourselves up for failure sometimes if we go into a situation assuming a certain outcome and then it doesn't happen, and we feel let down, or whatever, but if we can instead go into that amends process with, I'm going to do what I can to clean my side of the street.
Right.
Whatever they choose to do with their side of the street is up to them. It's their side of the street. But at least I know I've done what I can to try and repair that and clean my side.
Absolutely.
And I think at the end of the day, that's a really good solid step. And I
Yes.
think that it shows, the people that we're doing those amends with, hey, we are a new person. Hey,
Right.
we are trying different things.
Right. And to show them in your actions. Sometimes there's a thing
Mm.
called living amends. To where people might not, forgive you or whatever right away, but show them through your actions that you're doing your best to live a better life.
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%. Because I relate to that as well. In my early recovery in particular, I could talk real well, but I wasn't necessarily following up with action, you
Right.
know. But I think once I started to do that, I definitely rebuilt trust quicker,
Right.
and I was showing the people that I was actively trying to rebuild trust with that, hey, look, I'm more than just my words. I'm not just saying what you want to hear. I'm actually showing you,
Right.
right? And I think that it also has to be for us.
Right.
I think being able to get to a place where we see that we want something different and we're willing to take the steps to repair that. I think that's a huge place to get to, you
Right.
know.
Yep.
And just remember, for our listeners and viewers, just remember that we didn't do this to our lives overnight.
Right.
Some of us had real long drinking and drugging careers, right?
Oh,
Many, many years, and I think it's important to remember that this stuff takes time.
it does.
It's kind of similar to you know working out. Some people will go and work out and they want immediate results, and if they don't get those results, they don't do four sit-ups and they're expecting a six-pack, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
work that way. you
Oh
know
yeah.
and then they get frustrated, and I think it's kind of the same thing in recovery. So just know that no matter how small or insignificant a certain thing that you do in your recovery might seem, just know that all of these things add up. All these things build to that future in recovery that you're working towards. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, because it's very much a marathon, not a sprint, for
Yeah.
sure. But so I last thing I wanted to chat about real quick. Also, I just wanted to see if you had like one piece of advice or one really helpful maybe tool or something that you could share with a person watching who might be a potential client. What would you want to share with them?
Just don't give up on yourself. Everybody makes mistakes. Um, there's a saying that I like that goes, "Success is falling down 9 times and getting up 10."
Hmm.
So if you fall down at all in your recovery or at anything that you're trying to do, get back up, see where you may need extra help, and what was the reason why you may have fallen, relapsed, whatever. What's the reason why? And talk about it with somebody, and just just get back up and do your best. That would be my suggestion. Because it's tough. Just because you take the alcohol and or drugs away doesn't mean everything is going to be you know puppies and rainbows.
Hmm.
It's gonna you're still gonna have difficult days. Um, you're still gonna have to pay your bills and your rent, and at the end of the month you have $2 left, and you're aggravated. I
Right.
understand that, but just don't give up. You know, especially on yourself, because you definitely are worth it.
Hmm. I love that, Peter. Well, thank you so much, and I'm definitely looking forward to continuing this series, and appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk with us today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks.